welcome to another brand new episode here on 1950's Farm. So what are we up to today? Well, as you can see, we've moved on now to the next month, and if I just pull over, there's no traffic, so I was in danger of I was in no danger of killing myself or anyone else. The wheat is now through. It needs fertilising, but we'll do that from the spring onwards. But yeah, the wheat has now come through, and if it was real life, you would say that has tilled absolutely magnificently. But it's farming sim, and it looks like that every year. So, you know, in real life, this is a win. In farming sim, means you've done, nothing wrong, apart from I have missed the odd bit. But I decided to keep it in because in real life, you wouldn't really necessarily you'd known you'd missed them until it grew, and then you would know that you missed them. But as I say, it's not too bad. It looks pretty good. So what are we up to today? Well, today we're going back to Harry's farm on the little Fordson Inn, and we've got the Harry's cows to feed while we're up there. So we'll give them some hay. They probably don't need that much. We'll also give them some water if they need it as well. But I think hay is getting a little bit more desperate than the water. But as I say, while we're up there, we will do both. Or certainly today we'll just feed them anyway. Like I say, with the water, it's a bit of a long trek, so I could either do that in a time lapse, or I could just do it off camera, because, as I say, it is a long old trek. But I can't find any sort of oldish sort of like water refilling mods. Everything that I've sort of found is quite modern, so I decided that for the water filling I would just do it off camera. There is a water tanker there, which is an old water tanker. It's basically an old barrel that's been plonked on a frame and with wheels attached to it. So this field of soybeans, I really would like to buy this, but because of fields like that, and then the one further over, you can just about make out the stubble of the corn, and then beyond that one is the stubble to the what was the wheat field. Because of the stubble, but because of the two fields that size, and we've got another field this next year that's coming crop as well. I'm a little bit reluctant to take on another biggish field. That's not the biggest field in the world, but on this map, I mean. But I am a little bit reluctant. So I'm not sure. Just because, as I say, I'm kind of struggling to get all of the work done as it is. The one thing I did figure, so I've been playing a different map for YouTube purposes, and the cut-off for wheat is October. We got into October 2, which is like the last, 2 days as farming sim works out, 2 days as October, and I got into day 2, and what happened was I got my kind of my maps mixed up, and I thought, oh my god, oops, well, that wasn't very good. No one saw that anyway. It's just, honestly, so kind of reminds me actually of when I was of something that happened when I worked on the farm. So the first farm that I worked on, as I've said many times before, it was more the second farm that I worked on was what can I say? It was a modern farm. The second farm was a very up-to-date, very modern farm. The first farm that I worked on was very much a sort of 1,000-acre family-owned farm. So the machinery on it was, apart from the combine, everything else was sort of second-hand. But the combine they did used to always buy brand new. They kind of I think always considered it that the combine was a well worth was an investment that you needed to get right. It was always a John Deere, and it was always brand new. They were almost like the two prerequisites of the farm. That, as I say, they had to be. It had to be a John Deere, had to be brand new. But so, as well as three main John Deere tractors really, which was 7810, a 6620, and a 6030. That was all set up for front loader, but we didn't actually have a front loader on it. But it had the joystick in, it had the mounts on. Now the tractor does have, although having said that, to be fair, now the tractor has changed. It's a 6155R John Deere with a front lift on it, but back then it was a 6030, and as I say, oh, that's full. Oh, okay, that didn't need as much as what I thought. I hadn't done this one for a little while, so I kind of guessed that that would need doing. James. So yeah, but anyway, yeah. So, but as well as those tractors, they had a Case Maxim. They had a Case XL 1455, I think it was, and David Browns, and sort of stuff like that. Now the David Browns, they were my favourite when I was a kid. That was the brand of tractor that I learned to drive tractors on. So the 886 David Brown was the first tractor that I'd ever driven by myself. And it was amazing. I then progressed from that up to the David Brown 996, and this was when I was a kid. And I used to go on to the first farm that I worked on, as I've said before, my granddad and my uncles and everyone worked, and my nan and and aunties and that all worked on the farm. It was owned by one family, but all of my family worked the farm. They all lived in the cottages, as was the sort of way, back in those days. And so my granddad, in the summer holidays, if he was working in and around the field that was at the back of my house, where I grew up, he would let me drive the tractors, and the farm were okay with that. And my granddad was a very good teacher. Was one of those men from sort of that era of life where he couldn't read, he couldn't write, not really, but he could make anything. He could build anything, he could repair anything. But just in terms of sort of being a scholar, as my nan would call it, then I won't quite use the words that my nan would use, but he was as thick as, and you know what I'm saying. And but in terms of practical stuff, he could do anything. He's an amazing man. And I later found out just a little while ago a few months ago from my mum, that actually my dad was like that, and I didn't realise. My dad couldn't really read or write all that well. He could read and write enough, but he couldn't read and write that well. But the one thing that he really could do was numbers. As I said, before, we sort of ran a little bit of a stall together, and we were at auctions, and he was sort of working out prices, and he was like, well, if we do, but it was instant, and I used to always be massively impressed by it, because for anyone that watches these videos for any length of time knows I'm really not very good at numbers and maths. As I say, I got tested about 2 years ago for dyscalculia, so I went to a night school. I will get back to the original story, I've not forgotten. I went to a night school, and while I was at night school, I went there to learn English literature and creative writing and all that sort of stuff. And whilst I was there, the other people there were doing sort of maths, English, stuff like that. They were all adults, but they were all adults that had basically either not gone to school or were troublemakers in their younger days, but now wanted to learn the basics. I had the basics, really, apart from numbers, and we were sort of kind of sat there and had a lovely and the great thing about that was, because it was a paid course, I'm just going to have to take a little bit of a drink, so I've still got a bit of a sore throat. I've got a coffee otherwise. Yeah, it was a paid course. So because it was paid, it actually meant that we got one-to-one tuition. So there was an overall sort of teacher who would stand at a board and do whatever, but it sort of quite quickly became apparent. So I don't know what I was going around in a circle. I was looking for the hay. It quickly became apparent to that lady that I couldn't, do any of the maths, sort of questions or anything like that. And so therefore she sort of did a test, and the test did eventually confirm what she, I think, already knew, but what was completely new to me, that I had a condition called dyscalculia, which is where my brain just doesn't comprehend numbers. I can tell the time, and I can do basic counting and stuff, but there is, it's not very long in trying to do numbers before my brain goes, nah, I don't get it, I don't understand that at all. And as I say, anyone that watches these videos for sort of any length of time will know that. Anyway, so I was on the first farm. Get back to the original story, and I was on the first farm, and now that may not work. No, it doesn't. So you're gonna have to forgive me because the trigger doesn't work unless it's inside the actual. Yeah, I'm probably going to need to turn auto super strength on, aren't I? And then it will work then. But it doesn't actually work until that point, so I do apologise having to do it that way, but that's the only way I can feel that. Yeah, so I was on the first farm, and was driving the David Brown 996, so it was the same one that had been on the farm since my granddad, so I'd sort of grown up, and this tractor was still being used on the farm, and some the other machines that I'd sort of been given the opportunity to drive was the track marshal with the Dowswell plough and stuff like that. Farming has just been something I've always wanted to do. I suppose Luke Little, when he was like 3, wanted to play darts. I just wanted to work on a farm. That was all I wanted to do. Unlike Luke now, where he's fulfilling his dream, I fulfilled mine for a while, but sadly, it's no longer possible. But at least I got the opportunity, and that's the most important thing. And the good thing about all of that as well is that while I had the chance, I took the chance, and I did the very best that I could be. So yes, it's sort of upsetting and a bit disappointing that I can't work on a farm no more, but at the same time I did do it, and I did it to the best that I could be, so can't ask for no more than that. And so I was on the David Brown, and so the farm had sort of fairly new elements, so it had all modern grain stores and sort of stuff like that. But it also had some really sort of older style sheds with lean-tos on the side and what have you. And our workshop was split, so it was quite a big workshop, but it was split in two. But all the tools were one side, and the other side just had the winches and sort of stuff like that. So both sides had the main sort of stuff that you would need. So it had air lines and stuff like that, and drills and grinders and stuff. But hand tools like all the spanners and the wrenches and the whatever else was on what they used to call the main side of the workshop. And so but on the back side, so on the sort of not the main side but the other side, there was a lean-to. And in the lean-to we used to keep all kinds of stuff. So we used to keep like the road sweeper in there, the dyke and hedge cutter, the sort of the verge cutter, the flail mower. So there's all that sort of stuff in there. And oh, you always remember. It was August, and we'd been combining, and the rains had come. Oh, I lost a bail. Did it just come off, or no? I lost it in the trigger. The rains had come, and so the farm manager had said to me, he said, like, what I want you to do is get the 996, put the sidebar cutter on, and I want you to go into the paddock, which was behind his dad's house. So I want you to cut the paddock. No biggie, just sort of nice and steady. You're using a David Brown, not a modern day, John Deere. Just nice and steady, slow and steady wins the race. Yeah, no problem. So, oops, no one saw that again, right? I haven't had a drink tonight, I promise. And so he said, like, he said, John will help you get it on. So I was like, yeah, okay, thanks. And anyway, sort of John came around there and he said, you know what you're doing, Dave boy? And I said, yeah, I know what I'm doing. So he said, all right. He said, good. He said, well, I hope you get this on. He said, and then if you could get the plough on help me get my plough on, then, he said, I'll sort of go off and get ploughing. Yeah, no problem. As I say, he sort of helped me, so I just saw it that you help him in return, sort of thing. And anyway, he's at the back of the tractor, I'm at the front. Well, the problem with the Case 1455 XL and the David Browns was the seat was quite a way back from the pedals, so it meant that I had to sit right at the front of the seat in order to be able to reach the pedals. Essentially what happened was he was at the back of the tractor, I'm looking out of the tiny sort of square black back window that it had like, for anyone that's ever been on one, so it had the 996 that we had was covered, so it wasn't open at the back, and then it was sort of covered with like really thin tin, sort of up to about halfway. Then there was a window, but the window had like a sort of a square window cut into it that you could slide open and shut, right? So the tractor never ever got washed, so you couldn't see out of the back window. So what you had to do was you had to then obviously open the little slide window to be able to sort of kind of get your face pressed up against it so that you could see down below, to see your hook, your PTO shaft, your link arms and stuff like that, right? Because I wasn't tall enough, right? But as I say, the biggest problem with it was because I wasn't tall enough. Oh, hang on, I've just lifted that. Because I wasn't tall enough, it meant that I had to kind of rest on the back of the seat with one elbow to kind of lift my bum off the seat so that my leg could be stretched out. I looked like I was kind of Superman flying through. Well, of course, what happened was that because it had been raining and we'd been in the long grass and we'd been sort of, been checking the sheep and doing whatever, because it had been, as I say, it had been raining. And what actually happened was that as I was sort of stretching to struggle to see out the back while John was putting the cutter bar mower on the back, I don't know whether my foot just came up off the clutch. And now we had a bit of a rule, because I couldn't reach the pedals very well. The little rule that we had was that if ever I was in the tractor and people were either behind me or in front of me, when I wasn't actually, like, when we weren't going to be moving anywhere, I had to knock it out of gear, so that if my foot did, well, it meant that I didn't have to have my foot on the clutch basically, because it wasn't going to go anywhere. So I just had my foot then on the brakes. I'd have the brakes with the little bar at the back of the brake pedals. If they were separate, if the bar was off so that you had independent brakes, I had to put the bar down and then just put my foot obviously on the middle of the brake pedal. So we kind of had that, so that there was no unfortunate. Well, for whatever reason, this day I'd clearly forgotten to knock it out of gear. So I still had my foot on the clutch, and because my foot came up off the clutch, it either slipped off or my leg came up, and he was behind me. Well, of course he'd put one side on, but the side he was standing was the side that was off. And of course, the tractor just launched forwards. I mean, I can laugh about it now because no one got injured or anything, but it could have been very, 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 very much worse than what it actually was. But yeah, so as I say, I can laugh about it now, but at the time, it caused quite a bit of row and argument. So what I'd kind of done was that I'd launched forwards, and because it had dragged the cutter bar one way, the I don't know whether to say the shock, but the force meant that it had pulled the cutter bar out of its pin, so that dropped as it was launching forwards because it was only connected to one side of the tractor, and the tractor itself hit the post supporting the roof of the lean-to, hit the roof, and it hit the post. That knocked the post out, obviously, and the cutter bar then went through the sort of and knocked the post sort of completely out. The tractor had sort of dislodged it, but the cutter bar, that when that came through, that completely knocked it out. And yeah, so there was quite a nasty little accident. Of course, obviously John, who I was working with, was on the inside of the shed, and because the shed sort of came down, half sort of came down where we were working, and he'd got sort of caught by the cutter bar and the mower, and sort of got some cuts and bruises and stuff, but thankfully didn't have anything any worse than that. And he was also really mad as well because I tore the just below the knee out of his boiler suit that he reckoned he'd had for about 20 years. So he was quite mad at me for that, because he said it now means I've got to go out and spend money on a new boiler suit, which I didn't want to do, but I in the end went out and bought him a John Deere boiler suit to kind of say sorry, because that was what I wore. I wore John Deere boiler suits, and he kind of said the particular year I had a new one, and he said, "Oh, if ever I need to replace my boiler suit, that's the one that I'd have." He said, "I really like that, what you've got." He said, "That is really smart, that is." So I went out and bought him one of them, just as a kind of sorry. But in all fairness to him, he didn't really talk to me for quite a few weeks, to be fair. Yeah, so but that's what I did. I kind of went through the as I say, went through the lean-to, and because I got in a lot of trouble from the farm manager, who's, like, "Oh, you shouldn't be messing about," and what have you. And eventually John did say to him he wasn't messing about. We were working to get the cutter bar on. He wasn't doing anything wrong. It's just that he didn't take it out of gear and take his foot off the clutch and put on the brake. And as I say, at the time it was very serious, but I laugh about it now. And the thing is, I've seen John a few times since then, because it was only a couple of years later that I ended up leaving the farm and going to the second farm, after the farm manager, Adrian, on the second farm had seen me ploughing, and sort of said, well, we were actually looking for someone to take over our ploughing. There we go. I was going to say, why is that not tipping? But I was pressing the wrong button. It always helps to press the right button. Yeah, so as I say, but I ended up moving. But yes, and it just shows any sort of younger people that are out there in YouTube land listening to me, you know, working on a farm is one of the best things you'll ever do, but it's so easy to get it wrong. You know, it's so easy to have that momentary lapse in concentration, you know, and over the years of working on the farm, thankfully I didn't really have any really bad, terrible accidents where, you know, I or anyone else was, you know, seriously injured or whatever. But I mean, another, you know, sort of thing that I did, which, you know, it happened to me, and again, complete accident, was we had a person's box that went on the front of the telehandler, and we were up on the shed roof, on the grain store roof. We had a leak, and John, who I work with, had agreed with me that we would go up onto the roof, me and him, and you know, we would find out what the issue was and then try and sort it. Now, the farm manager had a height aversion, so he wasn't going up there, and it just, as I say, left me and John. Well, I don't like heights either. I didn't actually know I didn't like heights until I got up there, and then it was too late because the box was taken away while we were up there, and the trailer was put below where we were working, because we were basically taking the I'm not very technical, but like these sort of, they weren't really roof tiles or slates as you would but they were what we were using on top of our grain store, and we were taking them off, and rather than just chucking them down on the floor and then them shattering everywhere with, you know, millions of sharp pieces going all over the farmyard, obviously we were chucking them into an old trailer, because that way, you know, we wouldn't get punctures and that, not only in our tractors but obviously in our cars as well, because you know, we had to get through the farmyard to get to the car park, and you know, we sort of liked the farmyard to be pristine as much as it could be, you know, because it was a farmyard at the end of the day, you know, but we liked it to be as good as it could be. And we was up on top of the roof, and I can't really remember what happened. All I know is that somehow I lost my footing and I fell from the roof into the trailer. And I just kind of laid crumpled on, because I kind of fell on my right shoulder and the side of my face, and sort of lay in quite a crumpled, heaped mess. Luckily I fell into the trailer and not onto the tractor, or between the tractor and trailer, because I think that would have been an instant death. But because I fell actually into the trailer, I know there was stuff in there, and because it did cut me quite bad, but you know, but I did survive that one, thankfully. And again, as it happened, the ambulance people obviously came out, and they checked me over, and apart from some deep cuts that needed to be stitched, you know, there wasn't anything else really a matter with me. But yeah, that was quite a scary moment, falling through well, I didn't fall through the roof. I just sort of, as I say, whether I lost my footing or whether I tripped over something, I don't know what. I can't remember what happened. I just remember falling, and I remember hitting the trailer, and then kind of laying there thinking, I have done so much damage. You know, this internally, I'm probably, you know, bleeding, and all this kind of really bad stuff's going through my head. And as I say, it turned out that I had a nasty cut on my cheek, a nasty cut on my hand and my leg, and that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it. So in the end, got away with it quite nicely. Really, it could have been a whole lot worse than what it was, but yeah. So It, as I say, it was not pleasant. But you know, farms are incredibly dangerous. You know, places. And one summer, so I've told the story before about where we were tipping from the grain chutes on the trailers onto an elevator that was then elevating it up into one of the drawing floors that we had, and the only way that you could get it on, because we had, so the floors had grids in them where the air would be pushed up, and then we would have tins laying on top of those channels, and then they would be able to distribute the cold air, you know, up a little bit further. So they would connect to the side of the tunnel, and then they would direct the cold air, you know, up into the grain. And we were tipping obviously into the elevators, and so therefore, because the back of the trailers, when you tipped them up, because they were quite old, they had a tendency to sort of dribble out of the bottom. So the way that I used to stop that happening, when we moved up, because when we were tipping onto the actual wooden floors, we could just lift the tailgate up and just tip it, and then the forklift would just push it up. But once we started tipping on the tins, you know, we needed to then have the elevator, because we'd have to set out, you know, sort of 8 or 9 rows of tins, and then sort of elevate it over to the back, and then sort of work up. And I put Hessian. The way I used to solve the problem was to put Hessian sacks along the bottom of the trailer, and basically make like a door draft, and you know, sort of, it just stopped the grain from dribbling out. And I went home from a tea one night, and Ray, who I talk about quite a lot, we're sort of good friends now, and now we laugh about it and that. And he has since admitted that it was actually his fault and not mine. But at the time, he was driving my tractor, and what happened was so I had the spool valve to lift the tail door shut off. So there's, in the John Deere cabs, for those of you who've never been in there, there's like a little black lever behind or at the side of the lever, and what you do is you just push it towards the actual spool lever, and it puts like a little bar in front and back of the lever, so you can't move the lever. It basically locks it in place. That was on my 6620, and I'd gone for my tea, and he'd obviously tipped and pushed that lever, taken the blocker, as I used to call it, off, and then done it, and then realised what it, obviously it must have opened the door a little bit, because when I got into the yard there was like a line of grain where it looked like the door had been open, and he'd obviously opened it and then realised what was happening, closed it, put the guard back on. But what he didn't realise was that in opening it, of course, he'd let the Hessian bags or sacks, you know, sort of drop through, so they were now pinned by the tailgate after he'd shut it, but they'd fallen sort of, and they'd come down enough so they covered the rear lights and the indicators and stuff on the trailer. And then of course he went back to the field after tipping at the farm, and was indicating to go into the field, started to turn, and this car was going past him. And you know, sort of, Ray had a go at the car driver saying, oh, I was indicating, and he goes, well, I didn't see no indicators. And then when Ray looked, the Hessian bags had sort of fallen through, well, and had covered the indicators and the lights and things. And Ray and then the farm manager, when I got back to work, had a right go at me because I'd not took these Hessian sacks in properly. And my point was, you were driving the tractor, it's your job to check. And then he was like, no, it isn't, it's your tractor, I was driving it on behalf of you. And I said, but I didn't ask you to drive it. So that's the first thing. I said, and the second thing is, I said, is when you go into a vehicle, I said, and the police will tell you this, you are responsible for that vehicle, not the person that had it before you. So it's your responsibility. And he was going, no, he goes, I'm going to punch your lights out if you keep saying crap like that. And we had a big old round, and say we fell out, and the sort of farm manager fell out with him as well over it, because he was siding with Ray. Yeah, as I say, it was a big old thing, but eventually Ray has kind of, in the end, sort of said to me, he said, look, I was, you know, annoyed at the time, but it was my job to see. And I said to him, I said, also, Ray, I said, and I didn't put two and two together at the time, but I said, you opened the back door, didn't you? And for a long time he maintained that he didn't. And then about 3-4 years ago, and I shouldn't laugh at this, but again I can laugh at this because everything turned out fine, and he's still live and kicking and still annoying the hell out of me when I go and speak to him. And that he lives on his own and he's a great man and everything, and I still go regular and see him and make sure he's okay, make sure he's got everything that he needs. And like, at the moment the weather's a bit rough, so I sort of, the other day I sort of rang him and said, like, do you need any shopping, can I help you in any way? And he was like, no, I'm good, thanks, my son's sort of looking after me. Well, that's fair enough. I said, as long as you're all right. I said, but you got my number, if you're not, I said, like, let me know. I said, like, it's no bother. And he was like, yeah, he goes, I'll let you know. Thank you very much. But a few years ago, he rang me, and he said to me, he said, I got a problem. So I said, what's that? He said, this thing on the news that everyone's talking about? I said, yeah. He said, I got it. I said, you got what? He said, what they're all talking about. I said, you've got COVID. He said, yeah. So I said, okay. I said, how do you feel? He said, I feel really ill. So I said, okay. So I said, well, I said, I got to be honest with you, Ray. I said, with what's wrong with me, I can't come round. I said, I can talk to you on the phone. I said, that's fine. I said, I don't think it travels through the phone lines. I said, that's absolutely fine. I said, and I can talk to you on the phone all day if you want me to. I said, but I said, I can't actually come round. So anyway, he's going to me. He goes, am I going to die? So I said, well, probably not. No, I said, I got to be honest, Ray, you're one of the fittest bloody 86-year-olds. I think it was about 86 at the time. I said, you're one of the fittest 86-year-olds I've ever seen in my life. I said, I think you're going to be fine. I said, and anyway, I said, like, how do you feel? And he said, well, I just feel like I've got really bad flu. He said, I'm really achy, and he said, I can't stop coughing, and he said, like, I've had a little bit of blood coming up and what have you. So I said, well, you need to ring someone about that. I said, like, the doctors or an ambulance or whatever. I said, like, you do need to tell someone that. I said, because I said, that needs checking into. And he said, like, why do you think it is? And I said, well, it could be just the infection, it could be anything, And he'd go, like, could it be pneumonia? So I said, well, yeah. I said, there is a chance it could be. I said, like, I'm not gonna beat about the bush or sort of tell you in any way, shape or form. Anyway, he's kind of like, and we're on the phone, and he's sort of chatting away, and then all of a sudden he gets really upset because he said, like, he said, oh, I always wanted to get to my 100th birthday, and he said, I eat all the right things, I exercise like they tell me to, I do all of the things that that they tell me to do, to live the longest. He said, like, and now I've got some bloody back disease, and it's going to end my life. And I said, well, that's not necessarily true. Are you hearing all these people? I said, yeah, Ray, you're hearing about all the people that have died, you're not hearing about all the people that have survived. I said, and for all we know, there could be 10 times more people surviving this than the people that's actually dying from it. I said, I wouldn't worry about it too much, mate. I said, give it a few days. I said, give it about 4 days. I said, and I'll come round and see you. Oh, no, you can't come round. I don't want to kill you as well. I said, Ray, fine, don't worry about it. So, anyway, we're sort of talking away, and as I say, he's sort of getting quite upset, and he starts talking about mistakes and things in his life and his wife and all of this kind of thing. And then he goes to me, he says, and I've got something to confess to you and all. So I said, go on then. And at the time, I'd just broken up with my long-term missus. I wasn't married to her, but we'd been together getting not quite 20 years. And and I don't know why, but what I'm like, I like a joke and I like a laugh. And I said, oh, that's it, innit? I said, you slept with me ex and all, didn't you? And he was like, he goes, no, I didn't do anything like that. I said, I bet you bloody did. I said, everyone else did. I said, you might as well have done. Anyway, going, no, that's not what I was going to say. I said, what are you going to say? I said, I'm only messing about anyway. I said, I'm only joking. I said, what are you going to say? So he said, well, he said, you know that? He said, not say it now. He said, because, you know, he said, I'm dying and everything. And he said, I need to go to the grave with a clean conscience. I said, go on then. He said, well, he said, you know that incident with the trailer and the Hessian sack and everything? I said, yeah. He said, I did open the door. He said, I opened it by mistake. I pulled the little lever off. He said, and the little the shut off sort of lever thing. He said, I took that off. He said, and I did it. He said, like, you know, he said, and because when I did that, he said that Hessian bag must have dropped out. And I said, well, I said it did drop out. I said because I did check, Ray. I said to make sure that it was all right because I was going to be driving it all day. I said that's why I know I didn't do it because I actually checked to make sure that the Hessian bags were where they should be so that no grain was dribbling out. And I'm ever so sorry. He said, I got you in trouble. He said, you know, they were threatening to sack you and everything else. And I said, well, I said, Ray, I said, it's a long time ago now, mate. I said, I wouldn't worry about it. I said, I'm not worrying about it. And he was like, yeah, he said, but it's not right that you live with the guilt and the burden. I said, I've got to be honest with you, Ray. I said, I've never lived with the guilt and I've never lived with the burden. I said, you're fine, don't worry about it. I said, like I said, give it a few days, I'll come round and see you. Anyway, I gave it, I think I left it about 5-6 days. And I rang him and I said, right, I said, I'm thinking about coming around today. I said, how you feeling? He's got, oh, feeling a lot better today. He said, I'm back on form. All right, I said, I'll come round and see you then. And so we went, but yeah, it was really, really funny that he kind of thought that his time had come, and so he decided to confess everything. I felt like a pastor in a bloody confessional booth. Oh, Father, I have come here today, for I have sinned. Yeah, so it was quite a funny moment, like I say. But I tend, I mean, I don't live really with grudges and and hold things against people. You know, I've no need to. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I've really no need to. Life's too short. I always say, you know, life's just too short. You know, just like we all make mistakes. But just be honest when you make a mistake. Don't then try and pin it on someone else. You know, just say, yeah, do you know what? Actually, I cocked up there, and I'm really sorry. You know, hopefully it will never happen again. You know, and sort of, you know, everyone sort of can get on with their lives. But as I say, he tried his hardest to pin that on me so that he didn't get in trouble. And then, as I say, when he rang that day, after a couple of hours, it was kind of like, it was like all of his all of his past mistakes and past choices were coming. Oh, you know, my wife, I should have done this, and oh, I wasn't very sympathetic when her sister died. And I'm thinking, Ray, none of that is. This is not the reason why you have COVID. You know, COVID has not sat in some sort of life court somewhere, listened to your soul speaking, and gone, right, well, you deserve to die from this. You know, I said, like, you know, just, it's fine. You're absolutely fine. Don't worry about it. And he's like, oh yeah, no. He said, but I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna, you know, otherwise I can't go to the grave not with a clean conscience. And I was like, Jesus, you know, you told a white lie a long time ago. You know, I don't think, you know, there's going to be too many judgments when you do pass. You know, I won't worry about it. But it was. It did make me smile and it did make me laugh, and I've ribbed him about it ever since. Whenever he's got a cold or always go, well, you've got a nasty old cold at the minute, Rainy. Yeah, I said, anything to confess? And he just looks at me, rolls his eyes, and then laughs. And then he says, he sort of always says, he says, oh, don't tell me I've got this jammed on it. Please don't tell me I've got the trailers, because it sits a blooming low on this tractor. Come on, tractor, come on. Oh, it's only a bit of poo. Come on, Giants, make poo deformable. The trailer should just be able to bulldoze that over. It's been out in the sun all bleeding summer. It's as dry as anything, that is. Oh, can you believe it? I can't get my tractor out. and it's not even set up so that we can get chains and stuff and move. I'm just gonna have to do it the crap way, aren't I? Excuse the pun, while stood next to a big pile of poo. I'm gonna just have to do it this way. I don't like doing that, but yeah, so but yeah, it's it does always amuse me. And as I say, we often do talk about it. I mean, we talk about this series quite a lot, and as I say, we've obviously had a bit of a dairy day today, where we've got the you know, the poo sort of, we're scooping it out, obviously get a nice pile now. We can soon start muck spreading that field over there, which will be really good, because then we can get it ploughed. Once we get it ploughed, then obviously it'll be ready for spring drilling with soybeans. So yeah, today, as I say, we've had a bit of a dairy day, and when he sees this video, because he does watch my videos, I had to show him how to do it, but yeah, he does watch my videos, and I always say to him, Ray, you never comment, and he says, well, I don't need to, I see you every week. He said, I just comment to you. I said, yeah, but I said it would be great for people to, you know, see your comments in the comment section. You know, you can sort of say, well, actually, you know, he's not as good as what he thinks he is, or, you know, whatever. And Ray says, oh, you're alright, you know, he said, like, you're alright. But but yeah, say he'll watch this, he'll hear the stories, and then he'll go, did you have to tell everyone that? It's like, well, no, I didn't have to tell everyone, Ray, but I just thought it would make a nice Sunday night, you know, recording. So yeah, you know, he won't be happy though. But yeah, so he watches these videos, and he sort of sets me on the straight and narrow. And he watched last Thursday's video, and I spoke to him this morning, and he said to me, he said, right, he said, when you do your next 1950s, I said, yeah, he said, we'll have a dairy day, please. He said, you need to get that poo scooped out of that cow barn. So I was like, right. He said, and you know, you need to get that pile built up because we need to go muck spreading. And I said, muck spreading? I said, what do you mean we? I said, it's me that's got to do it. He said, yeah, I know. He said, but I like sitting there watching you do it, thinking he's suffering. This is taking him hours. So I said, all right. He said, yeah. He said, I do like to. He said, like, when, you know, with the drilling and that, you know, he said, you've done two videos, you know, he said, got probably, you know, sort of halfway across the field, and I thought, that'll be another 2 days yet, boy. Because he said, you know, and he often says, you know, now you understand what it was like for us, you know. He said, all right, you don't feel the cold, and you don't, you know, sort of have the effects of the weather and whatever else that we had, but you now know that, you know, and the fields that he worked on with these sorts of tractors were not as big as the fields on this map, because, you know, he said we just wouldn't have had fields that big because, you know, the window to get them done is too small, in Great Britain. You know, he said from November to, you know, sort of April it will be snowing, you know, he said, so you'd never get it done in time. But yeah, he does like to watch these videos. He does like to see the suffering, but not. And I was always saying to him, you know, well, to be fair, Ray, it's not suffering. I actually really enjoy it. You know, I said I enjoy the fact that I just sit there on my little crawler, going up and down, whether I'm ploughing or drilling or whatever, listening to my music or, you know, whatever. I said, you know, it's really good. And he said, yeah, now try and do that. He said, and listen to nothing. He said, because that's what we had to do all day. And I said, well, I could do that as well. And he said, I bet you couldn't. I said, yeah, I could. I said, I'd just sit and talk to myself all day. I said, just sing songs in my head. I said, like, you know, or out loud or whatever. I said, I could manage it. I said, I didn't always have the radio on at work, you know. I said, sometimes I used to just sit there chatting to myself. And he first sign of madness, that is. And I was like, well, I said, it was better than sitting in silence all day. But yeah, so anyway, I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to crack on with this and get the rest of this done, and we'll leave this video here because it's been 50 minutes that I've been yattering on for. But you know, in the past people have said, like, you know, they quite like the chatty videos or whatever. So I you know, every now and again, so I'd sort of trying to do less of them, because I kind of felt that they were getting to be every other video, and what I don't want to do is go too far the other way and then people get really fed up with them. You know, so we haven't done one for quite a while now. So I just sort of thought today it would be a nice, you know, a nice change to do. Boy, is there a lot of manure in there. We've still got 38,000 litres in there, crikey. As I say, but I just thought it would be something really nice to do. But I am going to leave the episode here. So I thank you all for listening. You know, if you've enjoyed listening to me, then why not subscribe? And you know, leave a comment in the comment section about near misses that you may have had on farms and different things. And as I say, in the next episode, hopefully this should be done, and we'll probably get on with some muck spreading. I think that is the next job that we need to crack on with. All getting ready for the big farm build and the trees at Harry's farm to be cut down. But as I say, anyway, I'm gonna end the episode here. So thanks ever so much for watching. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks for listening to me. You know, it really does mean a lot. I appreciate every single view that I get, and all I can say is thanks ever so much for joining me, and I can't wait to see you on the next video. Bye for now.